Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Arjun Chaudhary. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Thursday, the 30th of October. Sri Lankan court gives death penalty to 5 Indian fishermen for drug smuggling. US drone kills 4 suspected militants in Pakistan's tribal areas. And evacuation work on as India's western coast prepares for Cyclone Nilofar. And now for all the details. A Sri Lankan court on Thursday sentenced 5 Indian fishermen to death. They were arrested by the Sri Lankan authorities in 2011 for allegedly smuggling drugs.
All the 5 fishermen sentenced to death belong to India's southern Tamil Nadu. They have been given time till November 14th to challenge the conviction in the Sri Lankan Supreme Court. India's Foreign Ministry said the issue will be taken up by Sri Lankan authorities.
Now that a lower court has given its judgment, we intend through our High Commission to appeal against this judgment at a higher court. Simultaneously, we have been pursuing with the Sri Lankan government our view that we feel that these fishermen are not guilty because we have done our due diligence on our side and we find that they are innocent.
India and Sri Lanka share the maritime boundary separated by the Park Strait and Gulf of Mannar. The otherwise cordial relations between New Delhi and Colombo often run into troubled waters after fishermen from both sides get arrested by army for illegally crossing and fishing inside the other country's borders.
At least 4 suspected militants, including foreign nationals, were killed in a US drone attack in South Waziristan on Thursday. This comes a day after the Pakistan Army killed 21 insurgents in Khyber Agency as part of the ongoing Operation Zarb-e-Azb.
The drone attacks which were carried out in Birmal area of South Waziristan in the early hours of Thursday also killed an Arab national. Locals said the drone fired at least 2 missiles at a suspected militant compound. According to the army reports, more than 1,150 militants, both Pakistani and foreign fighters, have been killed so far in the crackdown which began in June.
जी तादाद सैकड़ों में है और मैंने ये शुरू में भी जब मीरान शाह क्लियर हुआ था उस वक्त भी मैंने ये बताया और इसमें हर तरह के लोग हैं मारने वालों में भी आप देखें डिफरेंट नेशनैलिटीज़ के डिफरेंट फॉरेन ग्रुप्स के भी लोग हैं इसी तरह जो गिरफ्तार हुए हैं उनमें भी हैं.
Though the US has categorically denied of any involvement in the anti-Taliban operation inside Pakistan, it has stepped up the number of aerial attacks. Islamabad has long opposed Washington-led precision strikes inside its territory, calling it a violation of Pakistan's sovereignty and criticizing it for causing civilian deaths.
India's top counter-terrorism organization, the National Investigation Agency or NIA, has claimed of uncovering a plot by terror outfit Jamaat-ul-Mujahideen or JMB to kill Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Investigators said the banned Islamist militia was also planning to organize a coup in the country from neighboring India's West Bengal province. The NIA began investigations after 2 militants belonging to the outfit were killed in a blast while making bombs recently. The JMB was behind the 2005 serial blast at nearly 300 locations across Bangladesh. The terror group has been banned in both Bangladesh and India ever since. The death toll in Wednesday's landslide may cross 100. Sri Lankan disaster management authorities have said many are still feared trapped under the rubble as rescue teams continue to search for survivors in the massive disaster.
The rescue and relief operations resumed on Thursday after being suspended following bad weather and landslides. Search teams, however, fear the chance of finding survivors was getting bleak as heavy rains continue to make rescue difficult. Sri Lankan Disaster Management Minister Mahinda Amaravira, who took stock of the situation, said 300 villages along with 100 homes still remain buried under the debris. A massive landslide triggered by heavy rains buried the entire village of Haldumul in Badulla district, some 120 miles from capital Colombo on Wednesday. International organizations including the United Nations and the Red Cross along with neighbouring India have promised assistance to the Lankan army which is leading the rescue work. Experts said the disaster struck despite giving prior warnings of the possible floods and landslides to the villagers.
2005 දී මෙම ප්‍රදේශය නායන ප්‍රදේශයක් විදිහට හඳුනගෙන ජාතික ගොඩනැගිලි පරීක්ෂණ සංවිධානය විසින් වාර්තාවක් නිකුත් කළා මේ ජනතාව මෙතනින් ඉවත් කරන්න කියන නිවේදනය ලබා දීලා තිනවා. ඒකම 2011 දී නැවත වතාවක් එම වාර්තාව සනාථ කරමින් නැවත වාර්තාවක් අපි නිකුත් කරලා තිනවා. මේ අවාසනාවන්ත තත්ත්වයට මුහුණ දෙන්න හේතු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම අපි ලබා දීපු උපදෙස් ජනතාව විසින් පිළි නොපැදීම නිසා.
Majority of the victims of the calamity are said to be the Tamil minority tea plantation workers. Sri Lanka has been experiencing heavy downpours for the past few weeks, triggering flash floods and landslides across the country.
International human rights activists have outrightly condemned the rights violations in Pakistan's Balochistan. Many blame the Pakistan army for continued abductions and genocide in the southwestern province.
Balochistan is facing a humanitarian crisis with a rise in the number of enforced disappearances, torture and killings of Baloch people. Activists have demanded international attention to the violation of such rights in Balochistan.
Disappearance often means death, extrajudicial killing, and that is totally against international human rights law and international humanitarian law. And this is something that should be stopped. There's now a convention on disappearances, and this is an abominable human rights violation that should be stopped. Fundamental right to life is challenged.
Pakistan's biggest yet least populated province, Balochistan, is in the grip of a 6-decade-long insurgency seeking greater control over its resources. Activists say thousands have been abducted by the security agencies from the mineral-rich province, never to be seen again. In January this year, 3 mass graves were recovered with 180 bodies in Khuzdur district of Balochistan. The Asian Human Rights Commission called it a genocide of the Baloch people. Nationalist groups and human rights organizations, however, claim that the number of dead bodies recovered is much higher.
Any situation where an innocent, vulnerable person's human rights are violated in these abominable ways, it should be of deep concern to anybody who has human rights concerns at their heart, who cares about the dignity and the humanity of people.
Baloch activists have accused the Pakistani army of undertaking a kill and dump policy to end the freedom movement. Thousands have been killed and hundreds have been held in illegal detention centers by Pakistan's main intelligence agency, the ISI. The tortured bodies of many of those picked up by the agencies are found dumped across the sparsely populated province. The Voice for Baloch Missing Persons has time and again petitioned the UN seeking the release of the abducted people.
In one of the biggest drug bust operations in the country, Afghan forces destroyed about 20 tons of illegal drugs in capital Kabul. The latest seizure highlights illegal opium production in Afghanistan, which is on an all-time high.
A giant haul of illegal drugs went up in flames on Wednesday after Afghan counter-narcotics authorities confiscated the huge consignment of illegal drugs on the outskirts of Kabul. The seized drugs included raw opium, hashish and chemicals used to process them into heroin and alcoholic beers. The incineration of the narcotics took place in the presence of senior Afghan authorities and United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime officials.
شهر کابل دروازه‌های ورودی شهر کابل و حومه کابل توسط پلیس مبارزه با مواد مخدر افغانستان و دیگر نیروهای امنیتی کشف و ضبط شده است که مقدار آن و بیشتر از 20 تن مواد را تشکیل می‌دهد.
Wednesday's confiscation comes after a recent UN report pointed out that the opium poppy cultivation in Afghanistan has hit an all-time high. Afghanistan produces over 90% of the global output and remains the world's largest suppliers of opium. The majority of poppy farmlands are located in security-fragile areas controlled by the Taliban, who use the hashish trade to fund their activities. The ongoing US effort to eliminate the market for illicit drugs continues to fail as the opium industry expanded from $2 billion to $3 billion between 2012 and 2013. The local farmers and the Taliban traffickers, however, continue to cash in on a growing global demand as the nation faces an economic and political slump.
Indian markets ended at a record high on Thursday after being led by gains in realty, IT and consumer durable stocks. The benchmark Sensex surged to close at 27,346. The 50-share broader Nifty also rallied to end at an all-time closing high of 8,169. Tracking the momentum, over 178 stocks rose to their fresh 52-week high on the Bombay Stock Exchange. While Reliance rose 3%, TCS, Hindalco, Infosys and GAIL were top gainers. The market also recorded its highest ever turnover at around $171 billion. Ahead of Cyclone Nilofar, which is expected to hit India's western Gujarat on Saturday, authorities are busy evacuating nearly 30,000 people in its Kutch district. A report.
Barely a month after Cyclone Hudhud claimed 40 lives and dislocated 350,000 people in southern India's Odisha and Andhra Pradesh, another severe storm is tracking towards India. This time, the western coast of the Gujarat province along the Arabian Sea. Anticipating rough sea, authorities have swung into action, evacuating thousands of people, especially fishermen, towards safer ground.
तो सबको हम लोगों ने जो सुविधा उपलब्ध करानी है, सब सुविधा उपलब्ध करा दी है. BSF, NDF की टीमें वहाँ पहुँच गई है और जो मच्छी पकड़ने के लिए जो मछुआरे गए थे वो भी वापस आ गए हैं.
Still, there are some fearing the worst from the cyclone's landfall. With weather experts predicting strong winds and heavy rainfall, some farmers have panicked into selling their crop at low prices. As many as 20,000 sacks of cotton and groundnut have been stacked up in nearby Rajkot city.
ये गुजरात ऊपर तूफान बन रहा है और गुजरात के सौराष्ट्र के कोस्टल एरिया है उसमें 30-31 तारीख को बारिश की संभावना है और तेज बारिश की पवन की भी संभावना है. इसलिए हमारे किसान लोगों को मूंगफली बेचनी पड़ती है. हम ये केंद्र सरकार को प्रार्थना करते हैं कि अच्छा खेडूत को दाम मिले और यही हमारी कोशिश है.
Of late, India has managed to mitigate the impact of cyclones through better contingency plans.
Hindus across India mark the festival of Chhath by paying obeisance to the sun god. The 4-day festival culminated on Thursday amid devotion and prayers.
Hundreds of devotees thronged the banks of various rivers and water bodies to celebrate Chhath all across the country on Thursday. The tradition of praying to the rising sun on the last day of the festival was followed with much gusto. In eastern provincial capital Patna, residents took their early morning holy dip in river Ganges, thanking the sun god for sustaining life on earth and worshipping for well-being of their kin. Locals in northern Varanasi also converged on the bank of the holy river to mark the big festival. Chhath is celebrated mostly on the 6th day after Diwali and holds significance for married women who observe fast.
आज हम लोग सुबह आए हैं, छठ मैया को पूजा किए हैं, दिया जलाए हैं, फल फ्रूट चढ़ाए हैं, अब अर्घ देना है, सूरज भगवान निकलेंगे तो.
The festival is dedicated to sun, considered the source of energy and life force. Revelers stand in waist-deep river water and present religious offerings to the sun god. Foreign tourists in Pink City, Jaipur were flabbergasted at the exuberance of Chhath.
I love the color and I love celebrating with everyone. It's amazing.
Residents of northern Gorakhpur couldn't abstain from last-minute shopping of requisite items for the festival. They thronged local markets after praying to setting sun on Wednesday evening. The festival, mostly celebrated in the states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand, was observed even in western Mumbai. Devotees marked the rituals including holy bathing, fasting and refraining from drinking water. People in capital New Delhi took to river Yamuna where the local administration had made special arrangements for smooth rituals. Chhath, earlier considered a regional festival, has gained immense popularity through the years. The big day was declared a public holiday in New Delhi on Wednesday.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude the top stories once again. Sri Lankan court gives death penalty to 5 Indian fishermen for drug smuggling. US drone kills 4 suspected militants in Pakistan's tribal areas. And evacuation work on as India's western coast prepares for Cyclone Nilofar. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.